What type of time management do you need, and what should you do when you get overwhelmed? In this episode, I'm sharing my top 7 tools to help you beat your overwhelm. Hello, and welcome to the Fast Forward Amy show, the show where we lift your life and business with simple strategies. I'm Fast Forward Amy, your host and coach, and I'll bring you a new episode every Tuesday. If you're anything like me, sometimes you get overwhelmed. And today I want to share with you the 7 tools that help me beat my overwhelm. And if you're anything like me, these tools might help you. Now, not all of us are the same. I often joke with Jessica about the fact that some people are vertical thinkers, some are horizontal thinkers. A while back, I was presented with a vacation plan by my online business manager, and the planning was all vertical. And Jessica and I were looking at it in our second business, Alpha Women, and she just texted me and she said, "Let me guess, you can't figure out the planning either because it's written in a vertical way." And we just laughed about it, and I asked hey, can you put this in a horizontal calendar? Because I have a lot of difficulty thinking vertically instead of horizontally. I always need an overview. So you might be a vertical thinker or a horizontal thinker, or you might find that you can categorize yourself as an auditory, as a visual, or as a kinesthetic or tactile person. So before we dive into these different tools that can help you beat overwhelm, I think it's really important that you know that not all of these will work for you because you are different, you are unique. So when you are feeling overwhelmed, it's going to be very imperative for you to figure out which tools, which systems, which methods you can use to get out of that overwhelm really quickly and to also prevent your overwhelm. So for me, before we get started, as I wrote down these 7 tools, I thought, oh my God, there is one really important thing. It's what I just said. It's figuring out which way you process information, because that also means that you could get it out in the same way. So some people are very auditory people. They listen to things, they really register things like this, and it could also help them to put, for example, a voice recorder app on their phone, and when they are feeling overwhelmed, to just talk it all out. On the other hand, you might be a really visual person, so you might need all of the visual overviews and things in order to structure your brain. I am neither. I am actually a kinesthetic person, and for the longest time I thought I was a visual person. But what I figured out is, yes, putting stuff in files on my computer can help me, but it's often very difficult to go from being overwhelmed to actually getting it into my computer. And I have figured out that what works really well for me is actually doing the physical act, not of sex, but of writing out my thoughts. So in my office, you might have seen this on my Instagram, I have 2 huge whiteboards. There are whiteboards all throughout my house. There are notebooks everywhere. I actually use notebooks that are actually photo books, but I just want it to be as big as possible. I have a huge amount of pens and everything lying around so I can always just write out my thoughts. And the moment I can do that physical act of just ping-ponging, writing on a whiteboard, working with stickers and stuff, that's when I start to feel more calm. So when I am feeling super overwhelmed, I start by taking the first 15 minutes of my day by writing out the overview of my day on my whiteboard. I start by setting an intention for the day. Often that means I say, I want to feel centered, I want to be grounded, I want to feel abundant, something like that. Then I'll list out what my top priorities for the day are, maximum 3. Or I'll do top priorities for both businesses and my health, for example. And I'll walk through my calendar. And sometimes there are things in there that are events, like a meeting will happen anyways, but there are also tasks in there, like I need to prep for a certain masterclass. And often in those 15 minutes, as I'm going through it, it already helps me to just write out a few bullets for each item that I will be doing later on. Because as I'm going through it and as I'm writing, everything just starts flowing. So my number 1 tool that I use to help me beat overwhelm, this is not a joke, it's actually my whiteboard, because it really helps me to just put it out there through my fingers. I feel like I'm Spider-Man doing this. I just need to get it out. My team and I often joke about the fact that there are Post-its in my head and we need to get them out. The easiest way for me to get stuff out is by writing it down, not on a computer. I'm the worst at taking meeting notes and all of that. I just need to write it out, preferably really big, on a wall with Post-its. The second tool, by the way, I'm going to be listing out these tools and different products I use in the article of this episode. And as this is episode 105 through fastforwardamy.com/105, you can find the recap of these simple 7 tools. So my first physical tool was a whiteboard. My second tool is my iCal. Ever since I was in university, I've always color-coded my iCal. I remember people sitting next to me or behind me and asking me, what app do you use? How do you format your calendar that way? And I was just like, oh, it's just my iCal. Because I use Apple products. And I still haven't fully figured out how to link it to Google Calendar. To the big, well, let me just say, my team is not happy about that. But I use my iCal and my calendar not for other people, but just for me to structure my own work, my own whatever is happening, like my workouts, my health, stuff like that. If it's not in my calendar, it doesn't exist. So when I feel overwhelmed, first I make sure I figure out why I'm overwhelmed by writing it out and journaling on a whiteboard, for example, or in a notebook. And then I look at what are my priorities, what needs to happen, and I put it in my iCal. If it's not in my iCal, it's not going to happen. I've labeled one calendar named health. So that means 4 times a week there's a workout in there. I'll put a massage in there. I'll put like an appointment with my psychologist. All of that is health. There are many, many hours in a week that go towards my health. I try and plan those in before I plan in other stuff, because in the past I've pushed those back way too often and planned in work first. So now my personal trainer and I, we sit together every 3-4 weeks and we look at my calendar coming up. We make sure we plan in the workouts first. And then sometimes when I have podcast recordings or something, my morning workout can't happen, but then we plan it in the afternoon. So for example, after these recordings today, I will be doing a workout before I continue with my work, because I know it's really important that I make that a priority. My iCal helps me do that. And third up is Google Sheets. And as I'm telling you this, I'm sitting here with my laptop scrolling in my Google Sheets. Robin, who's on my marketing team, is actually also in that Google Sheet. And I gotta tell you, many people have tried to bring in new systems in my business. And in the past, I've been like, okay, you can make a new system, a new project manager, whatever. And then I didn't know how to use it. Or no one would use it, or it was way too complicated. And I do not like using too much external software. I like using stuff that you will be always able to use later on, that you can export as a CSV, stuff like that. I don't like being dependent on a system I pay money to, because what if I stop using it? Can I export everything? Can I print it all out? Often, it's not fully the case. So my third favorite tool to just structure my brain so I can beat my overwhelm is Google Sheets or Excel or whatever you call it. A lot of people are afraid of Excel because they think that's for formulas and all of that. Let's be honest, I don't know how to use those formulas. I know how to do a sum and an average and stuff like that. But for example, for the podcast, I can show you as you're watching. You might not see it, but I have created this document that we use for every podcast recording, and it has an overview of the different podcast episodes that we're recording in the same day. And in different tabs are our different batches. We have the numbers at the top, we have the titles, we have the recap of everything I'm saying. Robin is writing as I am speaking in that document, so we are already prepared for easier copywriting. I'm also thinking we actually created a template of this, and Robin might be able to put in the link in this document of what that document is, so I can give you that template of the podcast document. Robin, let me know in the file if we find it. So Google Sheets for me is just about creating a title, creating a yearly overview, putting in my thoughts there, thinking what are my different content ideas, then structuring them into different weeks where I'm hosting lives. So by the way, she's already responded to me. This is really funny. If you go to fastforwardamy.com/batch your podcast, you will find the exact template I'm using as I am sitting here, because Robin and I prepped that for you. So that's batch your podcast. I'll also add it to the links of this episode. So make it stupid simple. Make sure you can access your documents anywhere. Make sure you can always export it so you can repurpose it in different systems. I see way too many starting entrepreneurs make everything so complicated and using really complicated task managers and stuff. But when you are working by yourself, you don't need those. And even when you're working with a bigger team, the most important thing in using tools is not that the tools are perfect or the software is perfect. Newsflash, it will never be perfect. Is that you are able to use it consistently. And this really stupid document, we've now been using it for over half a year, very consistently for our podcast episodes. And I have so much work to do that preparing podcast episodes for me is really not easy. So I used to write it all out on my whiteboard. And then it would be there and I'm like, okay, but how do I prep it then? So now I first brainstorm on my whiteboard. I then circle the things I'm definitely going to use for my podcast. And then we input it in this document and sort it by dates. Then we can even look at, okay, which set do we need for what? Do we need a whiteboard? Which outfit are we going to use for multiple episodes when we are batching? It just really allows me to zoom out on stuff by using Google Sheets, because you can always format it and make a lot of information really dense so you see everything at the same time. So when you're starting out, don't invest in too many different software tools. Invest in learning about systems and methods for yourself to become better at time management, better at energy management, actually. And then the next one was deleted from my Google Doc by Robin just now. But the next tool that I love using to beat my overwhelm is SimpleMind. SimpleMind is a really simple app that you can install for free or paid on your MacBook, on your iPhone, whatever. I always install it on my Apple devices, and it's a tool that you can use to mind map. So I often have a lot of crazy ideas, or I'll have to brainstorm about my new ideal clients, or about a new course I'm creating, or about a new podcast. And I could whiteboard it out as a mind map. I learned that from my parents at a young age. My dad makes these amazing mind maps, super beautiful with drawings. I can't do that, but I'm a millennial, and what I can do is I can use the tool SimpleMind and add emojis to the different things I mind map about. That's my way of communicating. So when I'm on the train, when I'm at the office with my team, and I need to get information and overwhelm out of my head really quickly, the fastest way for me to do it is not in a Google Doc by writing it out. It's not by making a very good project tracker or whatever. I don't know how to do that stuff. I just make a mind map. And when I make a mind map, I can give it to the people who work with me who are a little bit more organized, and they can turn it into information people can comprehend. The furthest I'll go is create a Google Sheet, okay? From the mind map, I'll create a Google Sheet, and then they'll run with it. I am fortunate enough that Robin on my marketing team seems to have a brain that's kind of works in the same way as mine does. So we love the Google Sheet that we're currently using. Well, I don't know. I'll look at her. Does she love the Google Sheet? Yes, she's nodding. She doesn't want to be on camera. I just had to trick her for photos. She hates me now. The fifth tool I use to beat my overwhelm is unfortunately a task manager. We're currently using Notion. I would love to be using ClickUp, but there is a steeper learning curve there. Well, no, I'm kidding. Notion has an amazingly steep learning curve. You can use Asana. It kind of depends. Asana's always felt really vertical to me, but you can format it in different ways. I know how to use Notion now, and it works for me, but I think it's too slow, if I'm being honest. I would love to be using ClickUp, but I don't want to change both of my businesses' organization. So what we're currently doing is we have our task and project manager in Notion, but all of our knowledge is kept in Google Drive, in Google Sheets, in Google Docs, in folders, all of that. Again, Robin organized our entire Google Drive. I know you must be so interested in meeting this Robin. She actually, her English is really good. She could host a podcast with me on how she organized the Google Drive, on her view of branding. But I feel like maybe we should do something on social media to get her to come on the podcast. So maybe if you're listening to this episode and you're like, who is this Robin girl? Can we see her? Maybe take a screenshot of this episode, share it on your socials, and tag me at FastForwardAmy. Be like, show us Robin. Have her come on the podcast to talk about organizing a Google Drive. She hates me now, officially. Okay, but so Notion. I know many of my clients have started using it. It's gaining popularity. As of today, it doesn't have an offline mode, I think. Yeah, it's one of those instances where I'm using it right now, but I'm gonna be honest, and I'm like, the entire Notion community is gonna hate me now. After months of testing it out, I'm not in love. I'm not impressed. I am impressed by what ClickUp offers because it integrates a lot within the system. I'm certain that if I show ClickUp later to Robin, she's gonna take her pants off. Because she's gonna love it. Notion, ClickUp, Asana, Monday.com. It doesn't really matter what you are using. The only thing that matters is that you are consistent. I recommend if you're a solopreneur that you just use one single Google Sheet where you have different tabs. One tab with just like ongoing daily stuff, and then different tabs for your projects and what needs to happen there with different statuses. I think that's the best way to go. By the way, I have a product about that, like the Google Sheet I used to use when I worked by myself or with freelancers, with a whole ebook on how you can use it and how you can manage your time. It's called my time management system. You can find it in my shop. soft pitch here. I wasn't planning on pitching it, but if you're feeling like you could use some help and you've been wasting a lot of time on systems, go to fastforwardamy.com/shop, and there you can find the time management system. It's how I used to do stuff. And honestly, whenever people are like, oh, I have a new idea, I'm like, we shouldn't make it too complicated. Just go back to basics, and that's how you manage your time and energy. You do that by using the CBA principle. The CBA principle is you catch everything in one spot, you batch as much as possible, and you make sure everything you need to be doing is action-oriented. The C of the CBA principle is so important. I've created multiple episodes about it. I think episode 4 of the Fast Forward Amy show talks about it as well. It means you catch everything in one spot. All of the different whiteboards and notebooks and stuff isn't helping you if you don't make sure that you gather everything in one spot. Thinking of that, I'm gonna create an extra tab in this Google Sheet for my podcast and create like a drafts or ideas tab so that whenever Robin and I have ideas, or Amber, who's our copywriter, we can just put the ideas in there as we go. I'll link it on my homepage in Notion. And by the time the next podcast recordings roll around, we have outlined podcast episodes for the next round. I feel like that's an amazing idea. Sixth tool I use, my Remarkable. You've probably been targeted by Remarkable. They don't have an affiliate program anymore, which makes me sad. But it's this digital notepad where you can just write in different folders. Basically, it works like an iPad or whatever, but it feels more like you're writing on paper. And that's it. They will target you by saying like, you can convert your written text to like typed text. I don't use any of that. For me, what works really well is that I'm not just like hauling around all of these different notebooks and papers and losing everything. I can send my PDFs that I need to sign to my Remarkable, sign them, email them back. And what works really well is that it's one device. I use it together with my laptop. I cannot lose anything, so I'll make like weekly folders, be like week 28, and I'll just write all of my meetings, all of my stuff in that same folder, make it for both businesses, and then I can always find the different ideas and stuff I had, because I write so many things down and I don't do anything with them. So with those weekly folders, for me, at the end of the week, I look at everything I've gone through that week. Okay, what do I now need to give a spot? What did I learn this week? What could have gone better? What am I missing for success? And when I'm not using my Remarkable, I will use a huge notepad until I've filled it all up. This one is new. I'll be like going to the store, buying 6 of these photo books and using them as notepads. As I said, for me, it's important to write everything down, but make sure you're writing it down in the same spot. Otherwise, you'll get even more overwhelmed because you'll feel like your tasks and to-dos are just floating around. And last but not least, which is very online marketing driven, a social media scheduler. So when I feel overwhelmed, often it's also because I have a lot of content ideas that aren't happening. So I could be adding that to my ideas page, to my notepad, whatever. But I've also figured out that sometimes you get really overwhelmed by social media because you start overthinking your timeline. You're like, oh my God, and I need to post these reels of the different modules of my course and the quotes and then the photos and whatever. And I have noticed that there are a lot of social media tools out there that don't require you to plan in your posts, but are just like asking you to set up a queue. So you can set up a queue and you'll be like, okay, every day at 12, I just want to be posting. And then you can just push all of your ideas and drafts into that queue. That's how I like to use social media when we're not launching or have a fixed timeline. Because then I can just have like all of these different posts that I love, just push them in the queue, and then it will just post them instead of having to use my left and my right brain too much, because the creativity, the ideas, that's my right brain. Planning it out and making sure everything is like set up, that's my left brain. I don't like mixing those two. So I like creating my ideas and posts in Canva, for example, and then just like pushing them in a queue so they get posted. We're currently using Sked for that. Used to be called Skedogram. You can check it out through fastforwardamy.com/sked. We'll soon probably be switching to something else. Social media tools, again, not perfect software. It doesn't exist up until this point as far as I know. But it will change your life, because otherwise you have that to-do of having to post on social media every day. It will really stunt your growth if you can't schedule in things regularly. It will be really good for your growth if you make sure that you're posting every day or multiple times a day. So for my creative side, it's really helped me to just be like, okay, let's just plan it in. Let's just make that baseline of content is there. So there you go. Those are my 7 tools to beat overwhelm or to increase your productivity on the daily. And I'm thinking you might be interested in more systems for your business. These are definitely not the only systems I use or the only software I use. So I've created this Systems Bible, which will give you the direct links and explanations of which systems we use and have used in our business and recommend you use as a solopreneur or as someone who's growing their side hustle or their business to even working with multiple people. You can grab that through fastforwardamy.com/systems Bible. And as Black Friday is coming up, I know a lot of the systems we use are going to be giving Black Friday deals. So definitely check out that Bible and make sure that you use it throughout Black Friday or throughout sales periods to check out which systems you could buy at a discount, because often there's like 50% off, 30% off of these systems like our email service provider and more. So in the link in the description, you can find the Systems Bible. And obviously, as I've already said, this is episode 105. So if you go to our website and go to fastforwardamy.com/105, you will find all of the things I've mentioned here with some of the links, for example, to a Remarkable, to the social media tool, and more, okay? I hope you liked this episode. I know time management and energy management and productivity are always so popular, and I know that you're struggling with it. So what are you struggling with? Feel free to come over to my Instagram and let me know under a post if you see this episode there. It will be on IGTV, and just let me know, this is what I struggle with. Do you have any suggestions for me so I know what to make content about next, okay? Talk to you next week, Tuesday, with a new episode of the Fast Forward Amy Show. You can find me on Instagram as FastForwardAmy, and have a happy and productive day.